First contact and rising tensions. The star maps in Captain Sarah Chen's quarters told a story of expansion and discovery. Humanity had spread across dozens of systems in the past century, establishing colonies and trading posts throughout their small corner of the galaxy. But nothing in their century of space exploration had prepared them for what they discovered in the Vega sector. The UES Horizon, Earth's newest deep space vessel, dropped out of fold space near the edges of unexplored territory. Captain Chen stood at the bridge's forward viewport, watching the unfamiliar stars come into focus. Her first officer, Commander David Reeves, approached with a data pad in hand. "Status report," Chen said, not taking her eyes off the vista before her. "Long-range sensors are picking up artificial structures in the Vega 7 system." Reeves replied, "Multiple spacecraft signatures. Definitely not human design." Chen nodded slowly. "First contact scenario. Alert all departments and bring us in carefully. Standard diplomatic protocols." As they approached Vega 7, the scene that unfolded before them painted a disturbing picture. 3 massive vessels of sleek, crystalline design surrounded a smaller ship. The smaller vessel showed signs of weapons damage. Getting life signs from all ships, Lieutenant Wong called from her sensor station. "The smaller vessel appears to be civilian class. Their power systems are failing." Before Chen could respond, a transmission cut through their communications. A harsh, melodic voice filled the bridge. "This is Overseer Kex of the Nexarian Empire. You have entered restricted space. Depart immediately or face consequences." Chen straightened her uniform. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth Ship Horizon. We come in peace and wish to establish diplomatic relations. We notice you have a damaged vessel." "The affairs of the Nexarian Empire are not your concern," Kex interrupted. "The Marins must learn their place in the natural order. Leave now." The transmission cut off abruptly. Chen's jaw tightened as she watched another blast from the largest Nexarian vessel strike the civilian ship. Their sensors registered escape pods launching from the stricken vessel. "Orders, Captain," Reeves asked quietly. Chen's dark eyes narrowed. "Launch rescue operations for those escape pods. Shields up. This ends now." She activated the ship-wide comm. "All hands, battle stations. This is not a drill." "Captain," Wong interjected, "I'm detecting quantum signatures consistent with weapons charging on the Nexarian vessels." "Open a channel," Chen commanded. When the communications officer nodded, she spoke clearly and firmly. "Nexarian vessels, this is your final warning. Cease your attack on the civilian ship, or we will be forced to intervene." The response came in the form of a brilliant energy beam that lanced out from the lead Nexarian ship. The Horizon's shields flared but held. "Return fire," Chen ordered. "Target their weapons systems only. And get those rescue shuttles launched now." The next 30 minutes became a dance of light and shadow as the Horizon demonstrated humanity's combat capabilities. The Nexarian ships were powerful, but they hadn't counted on human ingenuity. The Horizon's adaptive shield frequencies and precision targeting allowed them to disable 2 of the 3 vessels while rescue operations continued. When the last Nexarian ship finally retreated, leaving their disabled companions behind, Chen ordered immediate assistance to the surviving Maran civilians. The rescued aliens were humanoid, with iridescent skin and large expressive eyes. Their gratitude was profound, but their warning was dire. "The Nexarians will return," their leader, Administrator Cell, told Chen in the Horizon's conference room. "They always do. They believe in their genetic and technological superiority. They see all other species as resources to be exploited or eliminated." Chen shared a look with her senior staff before responding. "Then they'll find that humanity has no tolerance for bullies. We'll need to know everything you can tell us about their capabilities and territories." As the debriefing continued, urgent transmissions were already racing toward Earth. First contact had occurred, but not in the way anyone had hoped or expected. Humanity had unknowingly stepped onto a much larger stage, and their response to this first encounter would reshape the galaxy's political landscape forever. In her quarters that night, Chen recorded her log entry. We came seeking new frontiers and peaceful contact. Instead, we found oppression and cruelty. If the Nexarians think humanity will stand idle while they terrorize peaceful civilizations, they're about to learn a harsh lesson. The real question is, how many other species have they subjugated, and what will it take to stop them? She knew sleep wouldn't come easily that night. The faces of the rescued Marins haunted her, as did the casual cruelty of the Nexarians. But she also knew that humanity's course was set. They couldn't turn their backs on this, no matter the cost. The stars outside her viewport seemed different now, holding both promise and threat. Humanity had hoped to find friends among them. Instead, they'd found their first true enemy. But in doing so, they'd also found those who needed their help. The coming days would test them all, but Sarah Chen knew one thing with absolute certainty: humanity would not back down. The breaking point. The emergency council chamber on Earth hummed with tension as holographic displays showed the extent of Nexarian aggression. In the months since the Horizon's first encounter, reports had flooded in from across the sector. Captain Chen stood before the assembled military and civilian leadership, her uniform crisp despite having just completed a 30-hour rescue operation. "The pattern is clear," she stated, gesturing to the star map. "The Nexarians aren't just bullies. They're systematic oppressors. They've subjected at least 12 species to what they call their protective oversight program. In reality, it's nothing more than glorified slavery." Admiral Torres leaned forward, his weathered face grave. "And you're certain about these resource extraction operations?" Chen nodded, bringing up new visuals. "The Marins provided us with detailed intelligence. The Nexarians strip mine inhabited worlds, forcing the native populations to work in their own destruction. Those who resist." She paused, jaw tightening. The Horizon found the remains of one such resistance. There were no survivors. The chamber erupted in murmurs of outrage. Security Minister Zhang raised her hand for silence. "What about their military capabilities? We can't risk an all-out war if we're hopelessly outgunned." "That's the interesting part," Chen replied, switching to tactical displays. "Their technology is advanced, but it's stagnant. They've relied on their superiority for so long that they've stopped innovating. The Horizon's adaptive shields caught them completely off guard. They don't expect resistance, and they certainly don't expect to be challenged." The Council's scientific advisor, Dr. Patel, stepped forward. "We've analyzed the data from your encounters. Their quantum weaponry is impressive, but their tactical systems are predictable. They haven't had to adapt their strategies in centuries." "Because no one's fought back," Chen added. "The species they've subjugated were all pre-spaceflight when the Nexarians found them. We're the first advanced civilization they've encountered who refused to bow to their demands." Admiral Torres stood, his decision evident in his bearing. "We've seen enough. Humanity cannot and will not stand by while sentient beings are enslaved and exploited. Captain Chen, you'll have operational authority in the Vega sector. Your mission is to protect vulnerable species and gather intelligence on Nexarian capabilities." "Sir," Chen acknowledged, "we'll need more than the Horizon. The Nexarians may be complacent, but they're not weak. And once we start interfering with their operations in earnest, they'll respond with force." "Agreed. We're deploying the 7th Fleet to support you. Additionally, we're fast-tracking the completion of 3 new ships with upgraded weapons systems based on what we've learned about Nexarian shielding." The meeting continued late into the night as plans were made and strategies developed. But the breaking point had been reached. Humanity had seen enough of the Nexarians' cruelty to know that action was necessary. Back aboard the Horizon, Chen briefed her crew on their new orders. The ship's mess hall was packed, every officer and enlisted member present for the announcement. "We're about to embark on something unprecedented," she told them. "Our mission is no longer just exploration. We're going to be the shield between the Nexarians and their victims. It won't be easy. We'll be outnumbered, and we'll be fighting an enemy that's never known defeat." Commander Reeves spoke up from his position near the wall. "They've never fought humans before either, Captain." A murmur of agreement ran through the crowd. Chen smiled grimly. "Exactly. The Nexarians think their technology makes them superior. They're about to learn that humanity's greatest strength isn't our weapons or our ships. It's our determination to stand up against injustice, no matter the odds." As her crew dispersed to their stations, Chen received an urgent communication from one of their Maran contacts. The Nexarians had begun a new operation in a nearby system, targeting a pre-industrial civilization that had recently discovered rare mineral deposits on their world. "Plot a course," Chen ordered. "Maximum speed. We're not letting them claim another victim." The Horizon's engines hummed to life as they prepared to make their stand. In her ready room, Chen studied the tactical reports one final time. The Nexarians' pattern was clear. They struck quickly, overwhelmed their targets with displays of superior technology, and established their dominance before any resistance could form. But this time would be different. This time, humanity would be waiting for them. And if the Nexarians wanted to continue their campaign of oppression, they would have to go through Earth's finest first. The breaking point had arrived, and with it, the galaxy was about to change forever. Alliance of the Determined. The UES Horizons conference room had never been so crowded. Representatives from 7 different species sat around the table, each bearing the marks of Nexarian oppression, yet their eyes held something new: hope. Captain Chen surveyed the assembled delegates, marveling at how quickly things had changed in the past 3 months. "The Nexarians have ruled through fear and isolation," she began. "They've kept us apart, convinced each of us that we were alone in our struggle. That ends today." Krull, the towering Ventheran delegate, nodded his crystalline head. "When your ships defended our mining colonies, we realized everything could change. The Nexarians had convinced us resistance was futile. You proved them wrong. The Horizon's success has inspired others." Added Maran Administrator Cell. 3 more systems have actively begun resisting Nexarian control since you intervened in the Vega sector. Lieutenant Wong activated a holographic display showing recent battle data. "We've been studying Nexarian response patterns. They're predictable. They'd never needed to adapt their tactics before. But now." She highlighted several recent engagements where human ships had outmaneuvered the supposedly superior forces. "Their arrogance is their weakness," Commander Reeves observed. "They rely on overwhelming force and intimidation. When those fail, they have no backup strategy." The Zithran representative, a being of living metal named Echo, spoke in harmonious tones. "Our people have secretly developed technologies to counter Nexarian systems. We were too afraid to use them alone. But together we can end their tyranny." Chen finished. "Each of your species has unique strengths. The Ventherans' crystal tech can disrupt their quantum weapons. The Zithrans' living metal can adapt to their attack patterns. The Marans' stealth systems can blind their sensors. And humanity's tactical innovations can bring it all together," Krull added with admiration. Chen activated her own display, showing a comprehensive battle plan. "Earth's 7th Fleet will serve as the backbone of our combined forces, but we need more than just military strength. We need infrastructure, intelligence networks, and safe havens for liberated populations." The planning session stretched on for hours as the alliance took shape. Each species brought their own resources and expertise to the table. The Ventherans offered their hidden shipyards, the Zithrans their advanced metallurgy, and the Marans their vast intelligence network. But it was the smaller, newly liberated species that provided the most crucial element: their determination to never be enslaved again. "The Nexarians believe themselves inherently superior," said Lyra, a representative from a recently freed agricultural world. "They cannot comprehend unity between different species. It blinds them to our true strength." As the meeting concluded, Chen received an urgent message from Earth Command. The Nexarians had finally realized the full scope of the resistance forming against them. Their response was predictably brutal. They had begun orbital bombardment of 3 worlds that had shown signs of rebellion. "They're trying to make examples," Reeves said grimly. "Trying to crush the alliance before it fully forms." Chen's expression hardened. "Instead, they've just given us our first joint mission." Echo, "Can your ships be ready in 6 hours?" The Zithran's metallic form rippled with determination. "We stand ready." Krell, "We'll need the Ventheran crystal ships to counter their bombardment weapons. They will meet you at the rally point." One by one, the Allies confirmed their commitment. Within hours, the first true multi-species fleet in known galaxy history assembled near the horizon. It wasn't the largest force. The Nexarians still outgunned them significantly, but it represented something the oppressors had never faced: unified resistance. Chen stood on her bridge, watching the Allied ships move into formation. Human destroyers flew alongside Ventheran crystal ships, while Zithran living metal vessels adapted their forms to optimize battle efficiency. Marin stealth scouts darted between them, their sensors already probing ahead for enemy positions. "Send word to all ships," she ordered. "Operation Liberation begins now." As the fleet jumped to light speed, Chen reflected on how far they'd come. 3 months ago, humanity had been alone in discovering the Nexarians' true nature. Now they led an alliance of determined species, each bringing their own strengths to the fight for freedom. The Nexarians had ruled through division and fear for centuries. They were about to learn that the galaxy's species, united in purpose, were far stronger than any single empire could ever be. The time had come to prove that Bullies, no matter how powerful, could not stand against the combined strength of those they had oppressed. The battle for the future was about to begin. The battle for freedom. The combined fleet dropped out of light speed at the edge of the Centauri system. Before them, the massive Nexarian armada hung in space like a wall of crystalline daggers. Captain Chen counted at least 30 capital ships, backed by countless smaller vessels. The Nexarians had finally assembled their full might. "They're transmitting," Lieutenant Wang reported, her voice steady despite the tension. "Let's hear their final threats," Chen said calmly. Supreme Overseer Kex's voice filled the bridge, dripping with contempt. "Your pathetic alliance is an affront to the natural order. Surrender now, and we may spare some of your species for productive labor." Chen's response was measured. "You've spent centuries believing your technological superiority made you invincible. Today, you learned that true strength comes from standing together against tyranny." "Together?" Kex laughed. "You've gathered a collection of inferior beings. We will crush them, and you, as we have crushed all who resist the Empire." The transmission cut off as the Nexarian fleet began moving into attack formation. Their ships arranged themselves in their traditional overwhelming force pattern, the same tactics they used for centuries. Chen opened a channel to the Allied fleet. "Remember the plan. Ventheran ships move to counter their quantum weapons. Zithran vessels begin adaptation sequences. Marin scouts commence sensor disruption. Human ships prepare to exploit the gaps." The space between the fleets lit up with energy as the battle began. The Nexarians struck first, their quantum beams lancing out, only to be diffracted by the Ventheran crystal ships' defensive matrices. The Nexarians' surprise was almost palpable as their primary weapons proved ineffective. "They're adjusting their attack pattern," Reeves reported, "trying to concentrate fire on individual targets." "Just as we predicted," Chen smiled grimly. "Signal the Zithrans." The living metal ships flowed like liquid mercury, their forms shifting to create a networked defense grid. Nexarian weapons fire splashed harmlessly across their adaptive surfaces. Meanwhile, Marin stealth vessels darted through the enemy formation, their advanced ECM systems wreaking havoc with Nexarian targeting sensors. "They're losing coordination," Wang called out. "Their fleet communications are degrading." Chen nodded. "Now we show them how humans fight. All Earth vessels, execute Operation Thunderbolt." The human ships split into predetermined strike teams, each targeting key points in the Nexarian formation. Unlike the rigid, hierarchical Nexarian command structure, Earth's captains had authority to adapt their tactics on the fly. The result was chaos for the enemy. The Horizon led a decisive thrust toward the Nexarian flagship, supported by 2 Ventheran cruisers and a wing of Zithran escorts. Nexarian ships broke formation trying to protect their command vessel, exactly as planned. Their fleet cohesion is breaking down, Reeves reported with satisfaction. They don't know how to handle multiple attack strategies simultaneously. The battle raged for hours. The Nexarians had numbers and raw power, but the Allies had innovation and adaptability. Human tactics, combined with the unique abilities of each species, steadily eroded the enemy's advantage. When the Nexarian flagship finally exploded in a brilliant cascade of quantum energy, the remainder of their fleet began to retreat in disarray. The unthinkable had happened. The invincible empire had been defeated. Pursuing vessels report multiple Nexarian ships surrendering, Wong announced. They're requesting terms. Chen surveyed the battlefield. The Allied fleet had taken losses, but they had achieved what many thought impossible. The Nexarian Empire's aura of invincibility was shattered forever. Send word to all ships, she ordered. The age of Nexarian oppression is over. Any of their vessels that power down weapons will be treated fairly under galactic law. As the Allies began securing their victory, Chen received transmissions from dozens of formerly subjugated worlds. News of the Nexarian defeat spread rapidly, inspiring uprisings throughout their territory. Centuries of empire were crumbling in a matter of hours. In the Horizon's conference room later, Chen met with the Allied commanders. The victory had cost them, but their faces showed pride rather than exhaustion. The Nexarians never understood, Echo observed, their metallic form rippling. They thought dominating others made them strong. Instead, it made them vulnerable to united resistance. Humanity showed us the way, Krell added. You proved that standing up to bullies isn't just right, it's effective. Chen looked at each of her allies in turn. This victory belongs to all of us. Every species brought something unique to the fight. Together, we achieved what none of us could have done alone. As cleanup operations began, the Allied fleet received word that the Nexarian ruling council was calling for negotiations. Their empire was collapsing as more and more subjugated species rose up against them. The galaxy was changing. The Alliance had proven that cooperation between species was more powerful than any empire built on fear and domination. And humanity, by choosing to stand against injustice, had helped forge a new era of interstellar relations. The battle was won, but Chen knew their work was just beginning. Building a lasting peace would be harder than winning the war. But looking at her allies, beings from across the galaxy united in purpose, she knew they would succeed. The age of bullies was over. The age of cooperation had begun. A new dawn. 1 year after the Battle of Centauri, the galaxy was almost unrecognizable. The Great Hall of the newly established Galactic Concordat bustled with activity as representatives from over 50 species gathered for the first official assembly. Captain Sarah Chen, now Admiral Chen, stood at the podium, looking out over faces that had once been marked by fear, but now showed determination and hope. When humanity first ventured into deep space, she began, "We hoped to find friendship among the stars. Instead, we found oppression. But in standing against that oppression, we discovered something greater than we could have imagined. We found allies who shared our belief that no species should live in fear of another." The former Nexarian territories had been transformed. Their empire, once spanning a third of known space, had fractured into autonomous regions. Many former subject species had joined the Concordat, while others chose independence. The Nexarians themselves, stripped of their ability to dominate others, were beginning the long process of learning to coexist as equals. Commander Reeves, now captain of his own vessel, approached Chen after the assembly. "Hard to believe it's only been a year. The Marans have already established 3 new colonies. The Ventherans are sharing their crystal tech with developing worlds. Even the Zithrans are teaching other species about adaptive technologies. And the Nexarians? Chen asked, though she already knew the answer. Still struggling to adapt. Some of their younger generation are embracing change, but the old guard, he shrugged. It's not easy to let go of centuries of supposed superiority. They walked together through the Concordat's headquarters, built on a neutral world that had never known Nexarian rule. The architecture itself was a testament to cooperation. Human engineering merged with Ventheran crystals, Zithran living metal, and design elements from a dozen other species. The exploration teams are finding more civilizations every month. Reeves continued. Word of the Alliance has spread. Species that once hid from detection now seek contact. Chen nodded. They know they don't have to face the galaxy alone anymore. That's what the Nexarians never understood. True strength comes from lifting others up, not pushing them down. Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent message. A long-range exploration vessel had detected signs of another empire on the galaxy's outer rim, one that showed similar patterns to the Nexarians. Here we go again, Reeves sighed. But Chen smiled. No, this is different. We're not a single ship stumbling upon tyranny anymore. We're a united front of species who have proven that bullies can be stopped. The Concordat's response was immediate and unified. A diplomatic mission would be sent first, backed by the combined fleet. They would offer friendship and cooperation, but also make it clear that oppression would not be tolerated in their galaxy. Later that evening, Chen stood in her office overlooking the Concordat's capital city. The streets below were filled with beings from across the galaxy, coexisting and collaborating. Research centers combine knowledge from dozens of cultures. Trading posts buzzed with activity as species exchanged not just goods, but ideas and dreams. Her computer chimed with a report from Earth. The next generation of ships was ready, incorporating innovations from all member species. They would serve as exploration vessels, diplomatic carriers, and when necessary, defenders of peace. Admiral, her aide called from the door. The Concordat Council is ready for your briefing on the Outer Rim situation. Chen took a final look at the city below. Humanity had come so far from that first encounter with the Nexarians. They had proved that standing up to bullies wasn't just right. It was transformative. The galaxy had changed not through conquest or domination, but through the simple act of species coming together and saying no more. As she headed to the council chamber, Chen remembered something her father used to say. The true measure of strength isn't in how many you can defeat, but in how many you can protect. Humanity had shown the galaxy this truth, and in doing so, had helped forge a future brighter than anyone could have imagined. The age of bullies was truly over. The age of unity had begun. And whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, as equals, as allies, as friends. The new dawn had arrived, and its light would shine for generations to come.